Okay, so we have a ecosystem here that is across multiple different kinds of games. How many people have played Candy Crush? Yes? Or any one of these games up here? Yeah? I mean, so we have over 100 million people a day playing our games, and we have close to 400 million people a month playing these games. We have a tremendous amount of players that engage with our content every day. And one of the things we looked at is the challenge of how you actually integrate advertising into those games. So you have to do it in a way that isn't going to be negatively affect the gameplay, is going to work for the advertiser, and is going to do it in a way that scales for the way that the advertisers want to buy. So when we looked at advertising, it was definitely not a straight path. I don't know how many of you have actually implemented ad tech before, but the key thing about ad tech that's going to happen is ad tech is always going to break. How many people in here have worked with ad tech that hasn't worked? Yes? Has not worked, right? So it works, usually it doesn't work, and you get to a place where eventually you've got the right kind of solution. So our path was first trying to understand in the market what ad tech was going to work at the scale we needed, and what ad tech wasn't going to work as well. Once we had figured out what kind of tech that was, we looked at what kind of enablement in the games that we had to make. So we had to choose a way that the users would engage in the advertising in a way that wasn't going to disrupt their gameplay. So we chose user-initiated video, a standardized format that allows advertisers to buy at scale and users to choose when they want to see actually advertising. One of the other problems you have with integrating, specifically in the entertainment industry, is that you have a voracious player base, right? And some of those players have a negative connotation with advertising. That kind of negative connotation makes it difficult for game developers to actually figure out what kind of advertising they want to put into the games, okay? So what we did is we did a study. We actually said, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to show the same players a single game with advertising, so user-initiated advertising integrated into the game that allows you to watch a video, receive a value exchange, and then progress in through the game. After those users have seen that, they can then continue to play, they can move on, etc. Okay? The study was interesting because at the end of it, we thought for sure people that had been exposed to advertising were going to have a more negative perception of the games. The exact opposite is what we found. We found that the players that engaged with user-initiated video advertising in-game, in-app, actually perceived the game more positively than those that did not have advertising. The second question we had to answer was, okay, so how is this going to work for the advertisers? So we worked with a major theatrical brand, and we did an interesting test. We said, okay, we're going to show a single unique user a 15-second creative in-app in one of our games, okay? We're going to show them that creative, and we're going to give them a value exchange, and they're going to watch a video and keep playing. So we showed them that ad. Then the next day, we said, okay, listen, let's show them a 90-second version of the same trailer and offer them the ability to skip it at 30 seconds and see how many people actually complete the entire video. So I thought this would be 3% or 4% or 5%. What was absolutely amazing that came back was that 49% of the people chose to complete the entire 90-second creative. So if users are only engaging with these units to get the value exchange and get the rewards, then clearly they're choosing not to. They're choosing to participate in the content. It works for the advertiser, it works for the player, and it works for us. On the whole, so now that we've understood how the advertising works for the advertiser, we wanted to make sure that we had 3 key tenets with our platform in place. The first thing is brand safety. You know exactly where you're running, in what game, what's happening, when, everything about it. There's no question about where your ads are showing up. So this is absolutely the first thing. You have to give the brands the confidence that, yep, this is my ad, and it is showing up in Candy Crush, for example. So 100% confidence in brand safety. The second thing is viewability. Okay, you want to make sure that, well, if you don't see the ad, how is the ad going to be effective? So all of this noise in the industry around, in desktop, there's 50% of the ads are viewed, potentially with the same adage with TV. At the end of the day, within our platform, it's 100% in view. There is no doubt whether it's in view or not. It's in the app, it runs to completion, and it's entirely viewed by a human being. okay? And then the third thing is verification. So the important thing here is don't take our word for it. Work with a third party like Moat or IES and make sure that you actually listen to them. And you say, how does this perform as a benchmark against other companies and other publishers in the space? So you have brand safety, you have high viewability, and you have verified reporting from a third party. So you put those three together, and you have a platform that brands can buy at scale. To that end, I'd love to welcome to the stage Steve, who's a huge brand with Nestle, who's worked with us over the last year to get the first ad in Candy Crush and up live. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Hi.
All right.
I have to declare an interest before you start.
Okay.
I'm on level 423 of Candy Crush.
There we go.
Coincidentally, yeah.
Well, we're here in a session talking about measurement and data and results. What are the three things that resonate with you about how your strategy for advertising proceeds at Nestle?
Clearly all three are critical. It's all about results at the end of the day. I think it's really easy in our business, especially as it is at the moment, to get seduced by the shiny new things. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of what we're really trying to do. And we're really lucky at Nestle. We've got some amazing, iconic brands all around the world. And some of them are 80 years old, 100 years old. And, my job and the job of all my brand marketing colleagues at the end of the day is to make sure those brands live for another 80, 100 years. And I don't want to be the one who screws things up. So the results is really what it's all about. So being able to use data and use measurement to help us reach the right people in the right place at the right time, all the basics, and really more and more importantly to identify which platforms are the best platforms for us and which ones are working and which ones aren't.
Great, yeah. I have a confession to make. I'm on level 410.
I'm ahead of you.
That's excellent. Do you believe that the market provides you with the right solutions when it comes to in-app mobile video advertising in the market today?
Yeah, it's getting there. Like most companies, I think we're mobile first. We like to think that we're mobile first. Everyone talks about it. The reality is we're not quite there. And I think anyone who says they are, maybe they're not telling 100% the truth. But there's a huge focus on mobile, and this whole area is really exciting, the whole in-app area, because for the reasons that you just showed on that last slide that you showed of all the hot topics in the industry at the moment in terms of viewability, brand safety. Obviously, they affect us as much as anyone else, maybe even more so. We're a hypersensitive company about brand safety. So opportunities like being able to advertise in app and in your games is really quite heaven sent, because we know that it's going to tick a lot of the boxes. Yeah.
Is it finally the year of mobile, or how close are we?
I don't know. I think the year of mobile came and went in a way. I say we're mobile first, but it's not kind of like we don't. When we're planning campaigns, when we're briefing our agencies, and when we're planning campaigns, there isn't a mobile brief. This is the problem. This is what we're trying to do. This is the campaign that we want to run, and it's inevitable that mobile is going to be part of that. You just need to look at people's viewing habits and see, TV viewing. I was telling someone last night, I started my career as a TV buyer, and in those days, you could buy a spot in Coronation Street in the UK and get like 20 million viewers easily on, a top rating program. Well, now you'd be lucky to get about 7 or 8 in exactly the same program. So it's pretty clear where the eyeballs are going, and I've kind of got a pet theory that worries me. And I think, I sit at home and I see my wife and my daughters. We're all second screening, and I've got an amazing shot of my younger daughter quad screening. So it's exactly where people are going. But what worries me about the traditional media, I mean, TV is still really important for us. Whenever we do market mix modeling studies, TV still performs really well. But we've got a whole generation of people for whom TV isn't first, mobile is first. So as that generation grows up, are they going to change their habits and suddenly start watching linear TV? I don't think they are. So that's 7 million to Coronation Street. Maybe that will become 4 million or 3 million. It's, mobile is just becoming, it's just a huge part, an increasingly huge part of what we do. And, all the opportunities around mobile for geolocational advertising and so on are just, really, really exciting.
So talk to me a little bit about ad blocking. I mean, is it real? Does it actually happen? And how does it affect how you choose to buy media? This might sound odd. It's not really something that we talk about a lot within Nestle. I think there's two ways around it. Maybe there's more, but one way, the obvious way, is something like advertising in an app. So again, coming back to the slide that you showed, I mean, that is not an ad that can be blocked. The user is on the game, they're playing it, they choose to watch the video, and there's a great value exchange there from, they watch our ad and they get an extra life or some, things that can help them get through the game. So that's a really good value exchange. So there's no ad blocking there. And I think just more generally, we do a lot of direct deals with media owners along with our agency, but we do them in partnership with them. So, we set targets in terms of viewability and so on. And, if a certain number of ads are blocked, it kind of doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we're going to hit the target that we want to hit. Got it. Okay. So how important is it for you to make sure that your brand is positively received without an interruption, with the content, and that the users and players or consumers are engaging with the brand?
Yeah. It's really important. I mean, again, going back to, I call it old media, but because I've been around long enough, we've always talked about being in the right environment, and so it's not a new thing. I guess the new thing now is all that horrible stuff that's out there online that wasn't out there before. You wouldn't. TV was easy. Let's avoid sex and violence, and you avoid certain programs. Obviously, we all know what's going on in the industry at the moment. It's much more difficult. But there's a positive aspect as well, which is putting ads in the right context. And I think I'm sure I must have read a book at some point, that, and if someone sees an ad in a situation where they're happy and they're enjoying themselves, they're going to feel better towards that ad. And I think the clever trick that you guys have pulled off is that the ad experience wasn't seen as negative, because when we ran the ads last year in some of the King games, we actually did some research with Millwall Brown. And really amazing positive feedback from the consumers, from the game players. Really, again, surprisingly positive. You'd think that they would be a bit negative about having their game interrupted, but they weren't at all. So, yeah, the context and the environment is really important. And again, you're going to get it in a nice, safe environment of an online game. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. Switching gears a little bit, there's some vendors probably in the room here as well. What are the most important things when choosing where to run your ads that use as criteria? So this is a hard requirement, might be something, and then maybe a more flexible one.
Yeah. Well, again, I think this whole situation that's been going on recently with YouTube and the industry with really bad ad placements. I'm really pleased to say we weren't caught out anywhere in the world. And I think that's because it's an area that we'd already focused on. So it's almost like a top priority. People often ask me, can you prioritize what's more important? Is it the price that you're paying, or is it brand safety, or is it viewability? I mean, they're all equally important, but if I had to prioritize one, I would say brand safety, probably for Nestle. And I know, every client is different, and it might not be so for other people. But we've got a couple of sensitive categories, with baby formula, a little bit of politics around that. Obviously, our confectionery division, fat, sugar, and salt. So, brand safety is really important. And we moved as we moved into programmatic. Early days of buying our airtime programmatically, a lot of it was bought open marketplace, just a bit crazy. We had whitelist and blacklist, but it was a little bit uncontrollable. And now, vast majority of what we came to a conclusion really quickly. We were prepared to pay a little bit more for the brand safety and for good quality environment. So PMPs and so on. Yeah.
For brand safety, how do you look at that as a criteria? So is it about choosing specific sites or certain partners, or is it about setting up blocking lists or using first-party, CRM data, as we heard in the last session, to make sure you're targeting your existing customers or new customers?
Yeah, pretty much all of those, actually. Whitelists and blacklists, for sure, which are constantly reviewed with the agency. And using obviously industry tools, Moat and Integral and people like that, and various other vendors as well. And I think the key for us was doing deals directly with a lot of major publishers, and therefore we know that pretty much most of what we're buying is going to be brand safe. And we actually walked away from a couple of publishers because they wouldn't let us do third-party verification, for example. So it's just not worth the risk. So, we've walked away from those.
Got it. Going back to the TV point, you mentioned sort of a tipping point where, Coronation Street, there's fewer and fewer viewerships. At the end of the day, TV, even though the old adage is that 50% is wasted, I don't know which percent though, it still works. It still ships product off the shelf. It's very successful in that, right? Is there a tipping point coming with TV, or do is it tomorrow, or is it, far out in the future?
Well, I come back to what I said a few minutes ago. I think there is. I mean, it really worries me. I'll probably be retired, but I think there's going to be a point when, TV just is, it's still impactful. As I say, we do market mix modeling studies, and TV performs really well. But, I don't think that's going to go on forever. It's just we have to look at the environment, look at the landscape, and just look at how people are consuming media, particularly the younger ones. We all know there's a great danger in averages, and you say to the agency, well, what's average TV viewing? Oh, it's about 4 hours a day. Well, then you don't need to break it down to, you don't need to be a stats genius to know that, older people are watching 5.5 or 6 hours a day, and the younger people are watching 2.5. So, very often it's the younger ones who we want to reach. So, we keep a constant watch on it, and it's no secret. I mean, people could look at ad spend data along with a lot of other FMCG. The share that we put on TV was reduced, not as much as it's reduced on print and other channels. Yeah.
Let's talk about audience for a second. That was an interesting point. So, and we heard in the last session that millennials, you've got other competitors out there that have huge, very young audiences that you can reach. But the challenge there is that they might not be right for many of your products. So you may be targeting a female demographic, 34 to 54 or something, right? Yeah. How do you think about finding those right audiences, in a world where you have the access to different kinds of digital media choices, but that you really want the right audience? Yeah. So how do you think about that?
No, that's a good question. I suppose the simple answer is we're using data more and more. We started using DMP a year or so ago. Maybe we're a bit late into that. But we've got an in-house tool as well, so a lot of our own first-party data. The key to it, for me, is having the right people. It's like Scott was saying just before, right at the end when he was talking about staff. We've got a couple of people who work for us who really get it and really understand it, and you can have the best data in the world, but if you haven't got someone who knows how to analyze it and what to do with it, it's just pointless. It's like, having a Ferrari sitting on your driveway and not having the keys. It's just absolutely pointless. So, that's all bound up in educating my brand teams. And so right from the briefing stage, we ask them to think about, we call it metrics that matter. What are you trying to achieve, and what metrics are you going to use to see that you've hit those objectives? And as they're becoming more and more aware of what they can do, it's not their day job; it's the job of my team, working with our partners in agencies and publishers and media owners and so on. But as we're doing test and learns like this and case studies and showing them what's possible, they're getting better at saying, right, so if I do this, then that's what I need to measure. And that inevitably leads to better targeting. So that's how we go out and find our audiences.
Got it. You've mentioned a couple times metrics matter and media mix modeling. Mm-hmm. Have those two things influenced each other before? And then within media mix modeling, have you found that as you've looked across the spectrum, there's just consistent media types that seem to be moving away from the plan, and certain ones that are moving towards? And obviously, no secret sauce or anything.
Yeah. Yes, it's reasonably consistent. I mean, what happened was we've got 12 different businesses within Nestle in the UK, and they all work really autonomously. They kind of don't speak to each other. But because I work in a central team, I speak to all of them, and my team speak to all of them. So some of them individually were doing MMM studies and getting some really interesting results, but keeping them for themselves. And we just said last year, this is crazy, because they're not cheap. So we set up a kind of an ROI task force, return on investment task force, which is led by me and my team. And the first thing we did was get everyone together to share. We had a workshop, and we got them to share their learnings. And it was kind of like scales were lifted off people's eyes, and some of them were sitting there going, hey, we had those findings too. Well, that's amazing, because it validates the findings. And others got some new learnings. So we've kind of got a renewed vigor within Nestle UK for that. And the answer to your question is yes. The ones that come out bottom almost always seem to come out bottom. And the ones that come out top, the order shuffles a little bit. But we don't just rely on MMM. I mean, obviously we do a lot of work with Amazon, for example. So, if we can identify return on investment when we're advertising on Amazon, little things like that, well, let's turn that off. Why are we advertising that product? Well, the return was just ridiculous. So it's the little things as well as the big things which help us with that.
Got it. So here's one of the last questions. Just if you could ask anything of the industry, so whether, within ad tech or within measurement, and you could just wave your wand and say, you know what, we get this, or Nestle gets this, or even just for the industry. Is there one thing that you could say, let's shift this to that?
Yeah. There's a lot. I don't know if this would be top, but again, I've got another bee in my bonnet about how overcomplicated we've made things. And I thought it was really interesting this morning. Jerry from P&G was talking in the main room this morning. And he was saying about how he suddenly realized he didn't know enough about programmatic. So he just set up 2 days' worth of meetings to get people to come in and explain programmatic to him. And now he feels he gets it pretty well. And I think I think media people was used to blind people with jargon, but I think now it's gone to a completely different dimension. And what happens is you get some people within brand teams, and at the end of the day, they're the people with the budgets. I'm a cost center, they're a profit center. They're the ones who sell the product that earns the money, that pays my salary. They go towards it and they become digital, not experts, but they get it, or they just say, I just can't comprehend. I do not know all these acronyms, all this jargon. I just don't understand it. So we do a lot of in-house training, and I try and I've come up with this analogy which I try and pacify them with and kind of give them permission. I say, imagine you're you've got a car, and you got your mechanic and who's fiddling around under the bonnet, and when something goes wrong, he knows what to do. Those are our digital experts. You're not going to become the mechanic. You don't need to become the mechanic. Then you've got the driver. The driver knows where they want to go, and they know how they want to get there. That's where you need to be, because if you're not in the driving seat, you're a passenger. And if you're a passenger, you're just at the whim of everyone else. So, and then they go, right, so I can learn a little bit, and it's okay. I don't need to learn everything, and it gives them permission. So it works really well.
Right,
Yeah.
Makes sense. I'd love to open it up to the floor for any questions, if we have one.
I'll go on. Yeah.
Don't worry, I can talk from here. No, it's fine. So, hi, Mark. Steve, we know each other obviously from the past. The question was around market mix modelling and your views on, its accuracy. Are you seeing it improve? Because I used to be the global media director of Mars, so we know each other from a long way. And we used to have a lot of concerns about, depending on what assumptions you put into market mix modelling, three people can put different assumptions in, you get completely different things coming out. So just wondered what your views are. Are you seeing that improving, and what other things you might be using?
Okay, I think I heard that. Look, it's not perfect. I'll tell you who, in my opinion, does this best. I saw a great presentation at an ISBAR meeting, Vodafone, and their head of insights came in, and he completely ripped up the rule book and set up their own measurement system. The great advantage they've got is that they can measure stuff in real time. They advertise, people take out contracts, they can measure that. It's slightly more difficult for us. Like I said, we don't rely on it totally. It's a really good, strong guide, but we use other metrics as well. So, and as I was saying to Ben, smaller metrics, just add, we try and part of the problem with MMM is it's measuring reasonably short-term effects, and I'm quite interested in longer-term effects as well, because again, coming back to my point, whenever we're running a campaign, it's a mix. I want to run this might even be one of ours. Yeah, it is, Aqua Panna. I run a campaign for Aqua Panna. I want to sell some more of those bottles tomorrow, but also I want to sell some bottles in 6 months' time or a year's time. So this is why when we run MMM studies, outdoor always comes out bottom. It always comes out really, really badly. And maybe I'm old school, but I think outdoor is a great branding medium. You can get it close to point of sale. It's going digital. It's great. But for some reason, it always comes out badly. I say, well, people still remember some of the great outdoor campaigns that would never have been picked up in MMM studies. We did something a year or 2 years ago where one of my brand teams, Rolo, they wanted to do some video advertising, and they didn't have enough money to get one of our creative agencies to make some ads. So we went out, we did some crowdsourcing. We did some curated crowdsourcing through a company called MoFilm. And we got they're all on YouTube. We got some amazing ads back. I mean, for a fraction of the price that a network agency would have charged us. And the only reason it worked so well, any Brits here I'm sure will remember, Do You Love Someone Enough to Give Them Your Last Rolo? Classic campaign. It hasn't actually run for 10 years, but it still resonated with so many people that was the simple brief to the filmmakers. We want some more ads. Do you love someone enough to give them your last Rolo? That's always given. And we got some incredible stuff back. So that's the longer-term brand equity in practice, and that is definitely not picked up by market mix modeling. I fully accept that. But it's kind of like, it's become a hygiene factor for us in a way, but we go into it with our eyes open. So, but there's lots of other metrics. In all the stuff that we get out of advertising in the games, brilliant. So for me, that's good ROI as well. I've got a question for Ben, if we've got time.
Okay.
I'm going to turn the tables.
Okay, do it.
Question is, we were really excited with the activity that we did with you, and it was just really nice to be first to do it. you've got a lot of data on the gamers, the people who are playing your games. Moving forward, and I know, pretty soon you're going to be ramping up the ad sales element of your business. Moving forward, how are we going to be able to use that data to inform the advertising?
Sure. So one of the interesting things we've done is we've actually integrated a DMP, a first-party DMP, into all of the gameplay data that we have. So everything that happens inside the game, we actually can capture. We can then take that and work with data that you give us around your customer list, and we can marry the two. So if it's something like, level 450 candy players that, play during the day and are a specific audience and then somehow relate back to your business, we can create that customized segment and then target that specific segment anywhere on the network. So the interesting thing for us, as we're just getting started with this, is how you connect all of that gameplay data, which is hundreds and hundreds of attributes of data every single day generated by every single player, and expose that to our best brands in the platform, and give them the information and say, you tell us, what do you want to do with it? And that's kind of the exciting next step that I'm looking forward to, is working with you guys and showing you that data and then having you cherry pick and see what we can do with it.
Great. We're looking forward to it too.
Okay, any other questions? No? Steve, again, thanks, and appreciate everything.